Have you ever been told, "You're getting old. It's time to slow down"? Maybe it came from a well-meaning family member. Maybe it was a doctor. Or maybe it was just the voice in your head, quietly whispering that your best years are behind you, that your job now is to rest, to stay safe, to let others take care of things. But what if that voice is wrong? What if taking it easy is actually what's making things harder? What if that chair you've been sitting in for hours is doing more damage to your strength than your age ever could? Let me tell you a story about a woman named Nancy. She's 76, lives alone in a small town just outside Columbus, Ohio, retired school secretary, widowed for nearly a decade, 3 grown children who love her but live in different states. From the outside, she's what most people would call still doing okay. But a few months ago, something changed. Nancy went in for her regular checkup. Nothing urgent, just routine. But during the visit, her doctor frowned at her blood pressure, her balance, her bone density scan. Then he said something that stuck with her. "Nancy, I don't want you walking more than 10 minutes at a time. Your knees aren't what they used to be." She nodded politely. She always trusted her doctors. But on the drive home, something in her felt off. Not worried, not scared, just defeated, as if someone had just quietly closed a door she didn't realize was still open. 10 minutes. That's all she was allowed to walk. And it wasn't just her knees. She'd been feeling more tired lately, slower. Her favorite cardigan had started to hang looser, unintended weight loss. She had trouble sleeping. Sometimes she needed to grab the counter to steady herself in the kitchen. Her joints felt like they were tightening up, like her body was shrinking inward. She chalked it up to just getting old. But after that doctor's visit, she started noticing things, like how long she sat, like how her neighbors, who were her age or even older, still seemed to move with more ease. And then one morning, while pouring coffee, she had a sharp thought. What if this isn't aging? What if this is me giving up too soon? That single question started it all. Because, here's the truth, Nancy wasn't ready to be done. She didn't want to spend the next 10 years slowly fading into a smaller version of herself. She wanted to keep driving, keep gardening, keep walking to the library without worrying about falling. Most of all, she wanted to feel like herself again. But how was it even possible at her age? Most people would say no. They'd say, "Take it easy. Don't push yourself. You've earned your rest." But Nancy wasn't most people. Instead of quietly accepting her doctor's suggestion, she made a different choice. She didn't argue. She didn't sign up for a gym or hire a personal trainer. She simply decided to stand up more than she sat, to stretch every morning, to walk a little further than the day before, even if it was just across the living room. It didn't happen overnight. At first, she got tired fast. Her legs ached. Her balance felt shaky. But something else started to change too. Her confidence. She started noticing she didn't need to hold on to the banister quite as tightly. Her energy came back, little by little. One day, she looked at the clock and realized she'd been walking around the block for 22 minutes, and she felt fine. She hadn't told anyone. Not yet. She wanted to prove it to herself first. And that's exactly what she did. In this video, we're going to unpack what Nancy learned and how you can do exactly what she did. Because here's the thing, your strength isn't gone. Your body hasn't given up on you. It's just been waiting for you to show up. So, if someone's ever told you that it's too late to feel strong again, or that your best option is to rest more, I need you to listen carefully. Nancy's story isn't rare. It's just not talked about enough. You have more power than you think. Stay with me, because what we're going to share today could shift everything, starting with how you get out of bed tomorrow morning. If you're still with me and this message speaks to you, type 1 in the comments to let me know you're ready to take that first step, just like Nancy did. And if you've ever been told to slow down just because of your age, tell me how you felt in that moment. Let's talk about it. Number 1. Nancy and the unexpected turning point. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Nothing dramatic, nothing you'd even call an accident by most standards. Nancy was reaching for a dish towel in her kitchen, same spot it had always hung, near the sink. Her sock slipped just slightly on the smooth tile, and her foot gave way. She didn't fall all the way down. She caught herself against the counter. No bruises, no broken bones, but her hands were trembling, her breath quickened, and in that quiet kitchen, Nancy stood frozen, not because she was hurt, but because she was shaken deeply. She sat down slowly at the kitchen table and stared at the floor where it happened. That tiny slip shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It meant she could have fallen. It meant she might not have been able to get back up. And for the first time, Nancy felt something she wasn't used to feeling: vulnerable. She wasn't used to being scared. She'd always been the one other people leaned on. She'd raised 3 kids while working full-time. She'd taken care of her husband through his illness without complaint. She'd managed her home, her finances, her life with grit and grace. But now, just standing in her own kitchen felt like it came with risk. She looked down at her hands, strong, lined with age, but still steady. She didn't feel old on the inside, but clearly, her body had other ideas. For the rest of that day, she moved more carefully. She held on to the walls when walking down the hallway. She avoided the back step where the railing was loose. She even skipped her usual stroll down to the mailbox, not because she couldn't, but because, for the first time, she hesitated. That hesitation lingered for days. And then, on Friday, she caught herself Googling something she'd never thought to look up before: how to improve balance after 70. She felt almost embarrassed typing it, as if searching those words made them true. But what came up surprised her. Not just exercises or warnings, real stories, people her age, even older, who had found ways to feel stronger, to move better, to bounce back. They weren't miracle cases. They were just ordinary people who had decided they weren't ready to give up their independence. Nancy read for hours, quietly, carefully. She didn't mention it to her children. She didn't want them worrying. She didn't want them stopping her either. If they knew she'd had a scare, they'd be on the next flight, trying to move her into assisted living. She loved them, but she wasn't ready to give up her home, her life, her say in what happened next. So, she kept it to herself. That weekend, she made a list, just a small one, nothing ambitious. It had 3 things on it. 1. Stand up every hour. 2. Do light stretches every morning. 3. Practice getting up from a chair without using her hands. That was it. No gym, no expensive equipment. Just her body, and the quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't done yet. She taped that list to the fridge. At first, it was awkward. Her legs shook. Her balance felt uncertain, but she kept at it. Every hour. She stood up even during TV commercials. She rolled her shoulders while waiting for her tea to steep. She did slow squats in the hallway, using the wall for support. No one knew she was doing any of it. Not her daughter, not her neighbor, not her doctor. This was her quiet rebellion, her private decision to not let that slip in the kitchen become the beginning of the end. And here's what happened after a week. She felt a little steadier. After 2, she could rise from her chair more easily. After 3, she stopped holding on to the counter while brushing her teeth. The fear didn't vanish overnight, but it started to shrink, replaced, bit by something she hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Nancy wasn't doing this to prove anything to anyone. She wasn't chasing youth. She wasn't trying to impress her kids. She was doing it because deep down, she still saw herself as capable, and she wanted her body to catch up with that belief. That moment in the kitchen had scared her. Yes, but it had also woken her up, reminded her that while she couldn't stop aging, she could stop surrendering to it. And the most powerful part, she didn't need anyone's permission to start. If you've ever had a moment like Nancy, a scare, a slip, or just a sudden realization that something needs to change, type yes in the comments and let me know what's one small habit you're ready to take back control of this week. Number 2, small changes, big results. It didn't take long for Nancy to realize that she didn't need a grand plan. She didn't need a full-body transformation or a personal coach barking at her from across the living room. What she needed, what actually worked, was something most people overlook. A small habit done daily, on purpose. She started with a timer on her watch. Every hour, she stood up, just for 3 minutes. Sometimes she walked around the dining table. Sometimes she stood and did slow arm circles. Sometimes she just stood still, took a deep breath, and rolled her shoulders. At first, she felt silly, standing there in the middle of the room, not really doing anything. But within a few days, her legs didn't feel quite so tight when she got out of bed. Her back didn't groan the same way when she stood up from the couch. And most importantly, she felt like she was participating in her life again, not just observing it from a chair. That simple habit, 3 minutes every hour, was her anchor. Then she added one more thing. Every morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before reading the paper, Nancy poured herself a glass of warm water, not hot, just enough to feel comforting. She added a small pinch of pink Himalayan salt, just a few grains. She had read that this helped balance electrolytes and supported hydration, especially first thing in the morning when the body was naturally dehydrated. It seemed almost too easy, but the impact was real. Her digestion improved. Her energy came a little quicker. Her mid-morning fog started to lift. Nancy used to feel like she was dragging herself through the first few hours of the day. Now, she felt like she was starting on more even footing, and still she kept going, not by doing more, but by reminding herself why she was doing it. That's when she did something unexpected. She grabbed a notepad, a marker, and some tape, and she started writing little notes to herself. Not long, not dramatic, just one sentence. This body belongs to me. I decide how it moves. She put that note on the bathroom mirror, then another by the refrigerator. My legs are not weak. They're waiting to be used. And another on the hallway wall. Stand tall. Nancy, you're not done yet. These weren't affirmations in the cheesy sense. They were reminders, quiet nudges to keep her mind in line with what her body was trying to do. Because here's something Nancy figured out that most people miss. The body follows the mind, but the mind needs proof. And proof doesn't come from one big change. It comes from consistency, from doing a little bit every single day. She didn't call it exercise. She didn't label it a program. She just called it her routine. And the amazing thing, it stuck. By the end of week 2, her balance had improved. She could shift her weight from one foot to the other without wobbling. She felt less stiff in the mornings. Her knees still ached from time to time. But they didn't stop her. She even started walking to the end of the street and back each evening. Not because someone told her to, but because it felt good. Because her body wanted to move. And when a friend called to invite her to lunch, Nancy didn't hesitate. She said yes, got dressed, did her hair, and walked from the parking lot to the restaurant without holding on to anything. That lunch wasn't just about the food. It was about freedom, all from 3 small changes. 1. Standing up every hour for just a few minutes. 2. Drinking a glass of warm water with a pinch of mineral salt each morning. 3. Reminding herself daily with handwritten notes that she still had control. Those 3 things cost her nothing, but what they gave back was priceless momentum, confidence, and a growing belief that her age didn't define her ability. It turns out the power isn't in your years, it's in your daily choices, your everyday effort, your willingness to say, "This matters to me." Nancy didn't wait for a diagnosis. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't wait to feel ready. She just started. Small, quietly, and over time, those small things added up to something bigger than any one exercise or doctor's prescription. They became her proof. If you've ever felt like it's too late to feel strong again, remember Nancy? Start small. Stand up. Sip smart. And remind yourself daily, this body is still yours. If you're ready to try one of these habits, drop a comment with the word "own it." Let's see who's taking the first step today. Number 3, her 2 secret weapons. Nancy didn't plan to tell anyone about her new routine. It was her little secret, something she did just for herself. But over time, 2 simple changes she made turned out to be the most powerful tools she had. Let's call them what they are. Her secret weapons, not vitamins, not supplements, not fancy gear from a catalog. The first 10 minutes of morning sunlight. It started on a whim. One morning, instead of flipping on the TV or scrolling through the news, Nancy made herself a cup of tea and stepped outside. It was barely 7:30. The air was crisp, the sun just peeking over the trees. She sat on her porch in a soft sweater, wrapped her hands around the warm mug, and just breathed. At first, she did it just to get some quiet, but she noticed something surprising. Her joints felt looser, her breath came easier. She started stretching a little. Nothing fancy, just rolling her shoulders, gently rotating her ankles, lifting her arms over her head, the kind of movement that doesn't look like much, but feels like oil in the gears. What she didn't know at the time, but later learned, is that this ritual gave her more than peace of mind. It gave her vitamin D, a natural mood booster, and a powerful support for bone health and muscle function, especially for older adults who spend most of their day indoors. It also helped reset her circadian rhythm. By getting that natural light in the morning, her body began sleeping more soundly at night. Within a week, Nancy noticed that she wasn't waking up at 3 a.m. as often. She didn't need to nap in the afternoon. Her energy held steady. 10 minutes. That's all it took. The second secret, a throw pillow and a wall. It sounds silly, but it changed everything. You see, Nancy had a hard time standing up from soft chairs. Her knees hurt. Her thighs trembled. She always had to push off with her hands. That meant restaurants with cushioned booths were a challenge. Her favorite chair by the window, off limits, and every time she struggled to stand, she felt weaker, not just physically, but emotionally too. So one day, she decided to practice, not in public, not with fancy equipment, just in the privacy of her bedroom, with a small pillow and a blank wall. She placed the pillow behind her lower back and leaned gently against the wall, her feet about a foot in front. Then she slowly slid down just a bit and pushed herself back up. It wasn't a full squat, not yet, but it activated the muscles in her thighs, hips, and glutes. She did this 10 times a day. At first, her legs burned. She could only go down a few inches, but she kept at it every day. No excuses. She used the wall for balance, the pillow for comfort, and her own determination for strength. After a week, she could lower herself deeper. After 2, she noticed that getting off the toilet was easier. By the 3rd week, she no longer needed to brace herself with both hands to rise from the couch. And by the 4th week, something incredible happened. She stood up, hands free from her favorite living room chair, slowly, steadily, without wobbling. She didn't shout, she didn't cry, but inside, something powerful shifted. She had taken back control, not from a trainer, not from a treatment, but from her own small, persistent effort. These weren't high-tech fixes. They were basic, natural, and free. 10 minutes of morning sunlight, 10 wall squats a day with a pillow. That's it. And yet, those 2 things unlocked a part of Nancy she thought was lost, her physical confidence. She didn't need to ask for help as often. She wasn't afraid of public seating. She didn't panic if she dropped something and had to reach for it. Most importantly, she began to trust her body again. Because, here's the truth, independence isn't about doing big, heroic things. It's about consistently doing small things that give you the ability to move, to manage, to live without fear. Nancy's secret weapons aren't really secrets. They're available to anyone who's willing to start small and stay steady. If you're ready to try one of Nancy's 2 habits, sunlight or squats, comment. Start below. I'll reply with encouragement and maybe even check in a few days from now to see how you're doing. Remember, strength doesn't come from youth. It comes from showing up. Number 4. What no one says. A new mindset matters more than strength. Nancy never set out to look younger. That was never the goal. She wasn't chasing her youth, trying to squeeze into old jeans or keep up with a fitness craze. She wasn't comparing herself to anyone. Not her neighbor, not the younger folks at church, not even the version of herself from 10 years ago. She was doing all of this for one reason and one reason only. I don't want anyone feeding me when I'm 80. That was the line she said to herself one morning, sitting on the edge of her bed, tying her shoes, and she meant it. For Nancy, this journey wasn't about reclaiming her youth. It was about protecting her future, because what she had come to understand quietly, and without drama, was this strength isn't about muscles. It's about choice. And once your body starts limiting your choices, it starts chipping away at your dignity. That's what scared her. Not the gray hair, not the wrinkles, not even the slower mornings. It was the idea of losing control over her own life, who she could visit, where she could go, whether she could live in her own home, whether she could get out of bed without calling someone for help. And that fear wasn't irrational. She had seen it happen to her cousin, to her old coworker, to the neighbor down the street who fell one day and never quite bounced back. One fall, One hospitalization, one small slip, and everything changed. So, nope, Nancy wasn't exercising to impress anyone. She was training for her independence. And what changed everything wasn't her legs or her balance. It was her mindset. She used to think aging was a downhill slope. You lose a little energy, you lose a little strength, and eventually, you lose your freedom. But that was before she realized something no one had ever said to her out loud. You don't have to go quietly. You don't have to sit back and wait for your body to fall apart. You don't have to accept weakness as the price of age. And most of all, you don't have to be helpless. Here's what Nancy learned: effort matters more than ability. It didn't matter if she could only walk to the mailbox. What mattered was that she walked there every day. It didn't matter if her knees ached a little when she stood. What mattered was that she kept standing. It didn't matter that her balance wasn't perfect. What mattered was that she kept moving. Because action done consistently builds something far more powerful than just strength. It builds belief. The belief that you're still in charge of your life. The belief that you still have agency over your body. The belief that you're not just getting older. You're actively shaping how you live as you age. Nancy started doing something else. 2. Every week, she sat down with a notepad and wrote one sentence. This week, I showed up for myself by. Sometimes it was as simple as getting up without groaning. Sometimes it was taking a walk after dinner instead of sitting down again. Sometimes it was asking for help without feeling ashamed. That practice of noticing, acknowledging, and owning her progress retrained how she saw herself. She stopped seeing herself as just an old woman trying to stay active. She started seeing herself as a person who chooses action over decline. That shift in identity, that change in mindset, is what truly transformed her. Because here's the thing, nobody tells you it's not your body that gives up first. It's your thinking. You stop believing you can change. You stop expecting more from yourself. You start calling limitations normal instead of optional. But Nancy pushed back on that quietly dangerous idea, not with arrogance, but with small daily choices. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She just needed to prove it to herself. So, if you're reading this and thinking, I'm too tired, or I've already lost too much strength, or I can't do what I used to, pause. Ask yourself this instead. What do I still want to be able to do in 5 years? Cook your own meals. Walk unassisted. Travel without worrying about falling. Then today, not tomorrow, is the time to protect that future. And no, it doesn't have to start big. Nancy's didn't. It starts with mindset, and then one small action, and then another, and before long, you realize that aging doesn't mean disappearing. It means deciding over and over again that you're still in the game. If you're ready to shift your mindset like Nancy did, leave a comment that says, I choose to stay in the game. Because the truth is, your next chapter doesn't have to be written in decline. It can be written in strength. Number 5. The surprising ending. 3 months passed. The seasons had started to shift. The chill of early spring was giving way to the first signs of summer. The kind of warmth that makes you want to open every window in the house. Nancy was in the kitchen, chopping fresh vegetables. Her favorite playlist was playing softly in the background, old jazz tunes from the 60s, and a pot of chicken stew simmered gently on the stove. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic, and she moved around her kitchen with purpose. She wasn't hurrying. She wasn't rushing. She was just present, standing, stirring, moving from one counter to the next. No back pain, no groaning joints, no chair behind her just in case. She had no idea. Her son was about to walk through the front door when he showed up, bags in hand, smile wide, surprised her with an early visit. She greeted him at the door without hesitation. No robe, no slippers, hair brushed, shirt tucked, posture tall. He froze in the doorway, blinking. "Wow," he said. "Did you hire someone to come clean?" "The place looks amazing." Nancy laughed. "Nope, just me." He looked around. The clutter was gone. Surfaces were tidy. Her favorite plants had been repotted and were thriving on the windowsill. Even the hallway, once dim and a bit dusty, felt bright and open. They hugged, and he followed her into the kitchen. She poured him some iced tea and pointed toward the dining table. "Dinner's almost ready. I made your favorite: chicken stew, roasted potatoes, a spinach salad with cranberries and walnuts, all made from scratch, all by her." He looked at her again, more carefully this time. "Mom," he said slowly, "you look good, different, like really good." Nancy smiled. "Well, thank you. I feel pretty good." He paused, trying to find the right words. "I mean, what changed? Did you join a program or something? Are you seeing a new doctor?" Nancy shook her head. "Nope, nothing fancy. I just decided to stop sitting so much." He laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. "I started standing up every hour," she said, walking a little more. "Moving around when I make my tea. I stretch, I breathe, and I go outside every morning, even if it's just for 10 minutes. He raised an eyebrow. "That's it." Nancy nodded. "That, and I stopped waiting for someone to save me. I got tired of feeling like I was disappearing. So I stood up, literally." Then she turned back to the stove, grabbed 2 plates, and started serving dinner. No wobbling, no leaning on the counter, no hesitation. Her son sat at the table, stunned. Not because his mother had suddenly become a different person, but because the change was so natural, so subtle, and so clearly real. He realized, sitting there watching her, that she hadn't reversed time. She just reclaimed control, and she'd done it without telling anyone. No big announcement, no social media posts, no one cheering her on, just quiet effort, day after day, over dinner. They talked like they used to about books, family, politics. But what stuck with him the most wasn't what she said. It was how she carried herself. Not fragile, not dependent, just strong, in her own way. And as they cleared the table together, he asked one last question, seriously. "Mom, what changed? What's your secret?" Nancy smiled, placing the last dish in the sink. "Honestly," she said, "I just started getting up a little earlier, and I stopped sitting down so much. That was it. No miracle diet, no magic supplements. Just one decision. Move more, sit less, start now." It didn't make her young again, but it made her feel alive. And to her, that was more than enough. Has someone ever noticed a change in you and asked what your secret was? Or are you just getting started like Nancy did? Comment below with, "I'm starting now." If today is your first step, let's keep this going together. Number 6. Conclusion. A message to the viewer. Nancy didn't become a different person. She didn't find a shortcut to youth. She didn't reverse time or escape aging. What she did was much more powerful. She made a decision, and she followed through. No gym membership, no doctor's prescription, no fancy supplements, just her body, her home, her willingness to stop waiting. We spend so much time thinking we need someone else's permission to get better. We wait for a new program, a recommendation, a sign from someone in a white coat. But here's the truth. You don't need a gym. You don't need a personal trainer. And you don't need anyone's approval. You just need one thing yourself. The moment you choose to stand up for your strength, your dignity, your independence, that's the moment everything starts to change. Not overnight, not magically, but steadily, quietly, deeply. The kind of change that sticks. The kind of change that brings back the parts of you that were never really gone, just buried under fear, under routine, under the slow weight of giving up without realizing it. Nancy didn't do anything fancy. She stood up more often. She drank water first thing in the morning. She let the sun touch her skin. She practiced getting off the couch without her hands. She believed she was worth the effort. And that belief, it's what built her strength back, not her age, not her past, not some big dramatic plan, just small steps, taken every day, with quiet commitment. So now it's your turn. And I'm not asking for big goals. I'm not asking you to run a mile or change your life overnight. I'm asking you one simple thing. Will you sit or will you stand? Because every day, we all get to choose. We can stay where we are comfortable, still, but slowly shrinking, or we can choose to stand, to move, to stretch, to walk, even just a little. Not because someone told us to, not because we want to impress anyone, but because we still want to live life on our own terms. Because like Nancy said to her son at the dinner table, I just started getting up a little earlier each day, and I stopped sitting so much. That's it. It's not a secret. It's not a hack. It's a choice. And that choice, it's still yours. So, here's my challenge to you right now. What will you do today for yourself? Will you stretch your arms above your head before you get out of bed? Will you pour yourself a glass of warm water and drink it before coffee? Will you take 10 minutes and just sit in the sunlight, breathe, and be still? Or will you set a timer and stand up for just 3 minutes every hour? No matter where you are starting from, this is your moment. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin. Because strength doesn't come from what you once did. It comes from what you're willing to do now. And trust me, your future self will thank you. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, which small action will you start with today? Will it be water, walking sunlight, or just standing up more often? Write it down, say it out loud, and most importantly, do it. I'm rooting for you.